So where'd you grow up in Detroit? You're
I
from
grew up
Detroit, right?
yes, I grew up in the Brewster housing projects. I grew up where Diana Ross, I grew up where,
Wow.
because I know Diana Ross's brothers. And
Wow.
and the stranger story, which basically is between me and God and Stevie Wonder, but he
Well,
would
don't
never
say it
know.
if it's on recording. So
No, I can say it because
okay.
it's truth.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's nothing facetious or crazy about it.
Yeah.
That when Stevie Wonder first started out, he was in they moved him into the housing projects. He had a piano and they had a bedroom where they had a piano. He was on the first floor. I used to sit outside the window and listen to him play. And like I said, nobody else in the world would know that, but I knew it, and I know he would know it because his parents brought him here just before he became famous. But he would be in there playing piano, and it was a rickety kind of out of tune upright. But I would just sit there and listen. And then going back and knowing all the history of all of the entertainers, or like I said, Diana Ross, the whole Ross family came from the Brewster Housing Project, and at one point I dated Martha Reeves' sister, so I
you just had music in your soul.
Well, it's weird because I wasn't a musician. That was the weird thing.
You weren't even thinking about it.
It was but it was basically in my DNA.
Because I grew up 7 Mile, Wyoming area, between Wyoming and Livernois.
Oh, okay.
So that's where I grew up.
Yeah, that's the Mumford area. Yeah.
I ended up going to Cass Tech, but that definitely was my home school, neighborhood school. Until I was 3, I lived more deeper west, and then I was northwest as I grew up. Once I was 3 years old, I lived there. So yeah, I just wondered if we had any neighborhoods in common.
Oh yeah, no, I like I said, the weirdest thing for me was the survival rate for the housing projects was not good. And my thing was, from the time that I could understand and realize things, my thing was to get out of there.
Yeah. Well, we both made it off the block. I always say, like Jenny on the block, everybody on my block ended up dead. They were, shot up for drug use. Right. Somebody had 10 babies, healthy 10 babies, prostituting on the same corner that they lived on. I'm like, go down the block, girl, go on another neighborhood.
Go in another neighborhood.
So I'm one of the few that made it off the block, that stayed on the block. I did have a girlfriend whose mom moved her off the block and somewhere else. Right. I always say, well, I stayed on the block and made it off the block. But I'm gonna tell you, this is what I'm so proud of. Totally had nothing to do with sleep, but I was able to, and I was just telling one of my clients this, who was having trouble fitting in at work. And I'm like, you can get along and you don't have to do things other people are doing. Because my mom saw me getting into trouble, and that's when she moved and had me go to a chartered Detroit public school and to go to Cass Tech public school. And I stayed friends with the people on the block. Like, we was like, hey, what's up? I was coming home with my books. They weren't like, oh, snooty schoolgirl left us hanging. They were like, hey, what up though? What up though? I went to visit one day and the girl was in her car, looked just like Set It Off. She had her braid, she was in her car. She's like, what up, Kim? What's up? The other guy was like, look, here's 6 of my 10 babies. I'm like, oh, very cute. You know what I mean? Like, we can get along with people and you don't have to put people down.
Right.
And still coexist.
Well, here's my there before the grace of God moment. That, having grown up in the housing project, we benefited from the fact that the city still had a tax base that allowed parks and recreation to exist. So we had sports all year round. We had indoor sports. The Brewster Rec Center had a swimming pool, boxing program. Joe Lewis was in the boxing program. A bunch of guys. So I learned boxing. I played baseball. I coached a championship baseball team when I was 15. Little guys like 12 and under. I coached them. And when I went to Wayne State, I started doing the music thing. I was in an experimental jazz band, and we used to get a lot of grants to go play in certain places. We got a grant to play in Jackson Prison.
Wow. Oh, I
And I
love
think I
that.
was 21 or 22, maybe.
Mm,
Uh,
mm, mm.
and the oddest thing about it was when we went there, they said, yeah, this is a rarity. You know, you very, very seldom the guys come in this way. So we went in, we were able to get in, get our equipment in and see the whole place, the library, all the areas that they say, yeah, you usually come in here, you don't leave out the same way. But they put us out
Oh,
in the field and they let the guys out of the turrets. They come out. And the thing was that they would dress in whatever street clothes that they had before they were incarcerated. So that was their thing. They would dress up. So all these guys come out, and we got this band. We're on the bandstand. We got the guards out there, and then I start seeing all the guys that I used to hang out with that were in prison.
yes.
And my brother and I got down off the stage, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" And
That
it was
just sent chills.
my sister's boyfriend, who she had a kid by. A guy that we used to hang out with that he did some horrendous stuff. But anyway, he was there. A guy named Herman, who I grew up with, who robbed a guy and killed him. He was 15 when he did it. And he went to prison. We saw all of those people. And that's when you know, we're out down there hugging and you know, because unless you come up to visit them, you would never see him.
Oh my goodness, Herman.
Yeah, and that was the thing of like, okay, I think I got it right. I think I'm doing something
You did
worthwhile.
full circle. You did
Yeah,
full.
yeah. So and the weird part about it, it was a clear blue sky with sun, and it was like we were on another planet. But
And
when
you
they
know what?
came,
Wow. To tie us up, and so then my first real job after college was helping people when they were coming out of prison and had
ah,
just gotten out of rehab and they still had the
yeah,
tether on. I'd be like, wear long pants. Okay, your hands are swollen. Just don't talk with your hands. Get your teeth fixed. You have body odor. I mean, I would do all these things, but that's when Coach KB, before they even called it Coach KB, Kim and Betty came to
right,
life because those were my peeps,
yeah,
you know. And that's, I actually probably could have stayed in that world forever. I just was doing so good. I got tapped by corporate and they brought me in. But this, to tie this in a bow, my whole mission is because that's where I started.
yeah,
And because they are my neighbors, those are
yeah,
my people. Only there before the grace of God go I. Like I
yeah,
said, my mother happened to tap me and put me in network with people who knew how to navigate the school system and get me in the other schools. But
right,
I made a vow when I left working with the community people that I would take what I learned in corporate and bring it back to the everyday person. And that's
try to
like
help.
something that's why I'm doing the podcast or when I do radio. It's all because I'm like, hey, I want y'all to get these strategies now. You hear? Because you might
And
not ever be able to afford it.
And the interesting thing is that after I'd stepped away from the music business because I loved the music so much, but I didn't like the business part of it.
Okay.
I took a job as an interviewer for, I'm trying to remember what the name of it is, a University of Michigan group that does, they provide all this data on, I'll think of the name of the place anyway, but I went and worked for them and my job was to go and interview kids who were the juvenile system was overcrowded. So what they started doing was they started paying to have a kid to have a counselor, to have a psychiatrist, to have obviously a parole officer or whatever. And they
Beautiful.
would send me in to interview the kid, about, what they did, do they understand, how the system works and the rest of that. And that's what I wound up doing. And it was mostly single mothers with the son, or the son had gotten friends with the guys.
We didn't even know that about each other. We didn't even know
Yeah,
that.
but I got into that thing, and that gave me an opportunity to try to tell some of those kids that it's like,
Yeah.
it's a zero sum win for you. You'll never come out of it. Your friends, once you get, I asked them, what happened when you got in trouble? Well, nobody came around anymore. I said, bingo, that'll be your life.
And Herman, the reason why I'm so dedicated to it is because we need to figure out, maybe we need to do this for something like that too. Let's think about that.
Mhm.
Because I'm so
surviving.
determined. Well, I went into and I taught at Everest College for a while, and
Mhm.
but people that gravitated toward me were the ones that. Oh, I have a blog that says "No BSing" because I remember asking them, "What are you getting out of what I'm teaching you?" And they
Mhm.
coined it "No BSing" because the guy was like, "Look, I will not walk down the street where my friends who hang out and drink and only smoke weed are, because if I walk down that block, then I won't go home down the right block and do my homework and come back." I had
Right.
another lady say, every girl, really young girl, who said, every time I have a baby, I drop out of the class, of the school. And it's taking me
Mhm.
4 years to like finish. So
Right.
she didn't stop having babies, but the last time, I never will forget, she called us while in the middle of giving birth and called the registration department, the counselor, and said, "I
Right.
need to take off from school for a while so she could preserve where she was." Like,
Right.
hello, I'm on the way to the hospital. I promised Coach Kim Betty that I would do this.
You're
And
right.
she did graduate. So my point is, like, I've seen some of the most successful people end up with beautiful jobs and be great, who started from the humble beginnings. And I'm determined. We seem like we both want to help.
Well, and if you really think about it, uh, so many of us, a large percentage of us, actually started out the same way.